Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is that realize the first of the realization, like know thyself, right? One of the oldest quotes. Look in that mirror and like ask myself, okay, am I really abusing this drug? Is this recreation or is it alcohol, whatever the case may be, and face it. And then think about it from not just an internal perspective, but basically your family, your friends, everybody that depends on you to be the best, person you could be. And in my case, I was on a path to drink myself to death, man. You know what I mean? And basically, you want to be there for them, your kids, your grandkids, your future kids, if that's the case. Your girlfriend, boyfriend, your friend, whatever the case may be. It's about them as much as it is you. So, face it, get help. Don't be selfish, and then, own it, man. Own it. Own it every day. So.
Everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter, the Author Podcast. We get to meet amazing people from around the world. And I love that people can take their story and put it into a book and share it with the world and help people at the same time. Moonchild is the name of the book. And Anthony's here with me today. I'm excited to have him on the show. Someone who's proudly served his country and then having to come back and kind of find his identity now back home and writing a story about this. And it's a powerful story. You're going to love it. And you're going to love this conversation. Anthony, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Dave, and thanks for letting me come on here and share this story.
It's amazing. Tell everybody, first of all, Anthony, people love to know, where are you in this great big world of ours?
So I live in right now. I live in Clovis, New Mexico, in the land of enchantment out here. I retired out of the Air Force 1 December of 21, and my wife's from the Navajo Nation near Gallup up there. So it's one of those things that I love the people, man. I love the place, and decided to stay. So
amazing. Talk a little bit about your military service, Anthony. Like, what was it for you that drew you to taking this path in life? You could have done anything with your life. Why did you go into the service?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I was 17. I'm about to turn 18 my senior year in high school there, and then my dad gives me the typical this dad-son talk there. Like, hey, it's time to either get a job, go to college, or get out. And at that point, man, I really had no desire to go to college or, get a normal 9-to-5 job. And, so I was like, well, I'm going to try the military route. And I talked to a Navy recruiter, and he was talking about being on a boat for like 6 months, and then an Army recruiter. And then finally, I was like, I'm talking about Dad. He was in the Air Force and about the quality of life of the Air Force and stuff like that. And, so he convinced me. And, next thing you know, I'm on a aircraft, my first fixed wing flight ever from Charlotte to San Antonio there in July 18th of 2000. I did I didn't start out flying in the Air Force. I did my first job was a weapons loader, what he calls load toads, and basically I loaded the fighter jets, the F-15 Strike Eagle, F-16s, and this was pre 9/11, so about a year and some change later 9/11 happened, and there was a point in my life where I thought about the firefighters that ran in the building that day, and I was like, man, like what's different in their DNA, so I really wanted to be that guy, like to put myself out there, test my mettle. And so I joined the Air Force Fire Department there at 5 years in. I did that for 5 years and still wasn't enough, man. And I get to a point even in the book there where I'm home on leave and I look out and I see the same cracks in the road. And, I was like, man, what we do in life, echoes in eternity, man. So all we can do is leave behind how we're remembered, and I realized that fact. And, what's this brief mortal life, not the pursuit of legacy, right? And so I was like, well, I don't leave cracks, I don't leave craters. And next thing I'm flying on the mighty AC-130 gunship. So did that for 11, as an aviator, 11 and a half years, then retired. So.
Wow. Okay. How much did you know about flying and all of that before you got into the service? Like, I'm amazed at how much you learn from zero to being out there responsible for these enormous, expensive machines.
Oh yeah,
it blows my mind. But how much air knowledge and flying did you have before you went into service?
So the only flight I had done besides, I guess the only thing I knew about flying was I took in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, one of my friends and her dad knew a guy that had a helicopter and did the tours over there, and they took me. It was a beautiful sight. I got to see the Blue Ridge, the Smoky Mountains, and the Parkway through the eyes of a bird, right, of an eagle and something like that. And I knew at that point that somehow aviation would be a big part of my life. I didn't really know the path I was going to take, and with the exception of that, man, I knew nothing, man. Like my first flight on the AC-130 gunship, funny story in the book there, my instructor, it went so bad, man, where like, he said something to the effect of like, you're the reason they have to brief seatbelts on airliners. you know, yeah, it went that bad, my head was spinning. And, we get to a point where he sees me licking my wounds and he's like, man, like, what's the most important word in the dictionary? And I was like, man, I don't know. I only know where I'm at right now. He's like, perseverance, and he's like, I want you to think about that word, what that means to you, and come back next flight ready to go. And basically I understood what he was getting at. You fall down 7 times, get up 8, you just keep going, man, and keep learning.
Okay, where did the idea of writing Moonchild come from, Anthony? Like, you come home, like, did you start working on this when you came back home? Was that kind of where the book began?
So I started working on it, like, I'll take you back to my last year in the Air Force. Oh, my last few years in the Air Force. But June 8th of 2018, I was involved in a pretty nasty casevac in East Africa, and combat search and rescue on those helicopters. Sometimes we saw the best side of that job that day. We saved 5 Americans. Then we saw the worst side when one got back. He died on the operating table, and that always stuck with me. And the mind's a tricky thing, man. And dealing with those demons. And then I went back to gunships my last year in the Air Force. It was not my last tour to Iraq there. Then it was so slow, and I'd realized that the end was near, right? Like that my identity, my sense of purpose, that's a real thing when you see your end of your career ending. And then I got back and I hit the retirement button, and what became a weekend drinking habit of like a pint, became honestly a day, a pint, at least a day to go to sleep. And my wife gives me the ultimatum of like, hey, like, it's either your daughter and I or the alcohol, and of course I chose my family, and thank God I did. And I'm happy about that. And, I got prolonged exposure treatment. And long story short with that is what that is like, you're a psychiatrist, you write out your story over and over and over. And you get comfortable being uncomfortable telling that story, and the first time I told her, man, I cried. Heck, she cried. And, she was always like, you should tell your story. You should tell your story. And then, I said no 100 times, man. And then once I did actually get out, even on terminal leave, I was like, you know what, maybe she's right. Like, when the dust settles, man, like maybe I can pay it forward. Maybe somebody could read this story and decide to get help. And if one person gets help from that book, then it's a blessing, right? So a lot of the words and the missions I had in here, but I ended up doing a LinkedIn search for an editor for like militaries and military writers, and that's where a war journalist, Holly McKay, reached out to her, and within minutes she emailed me back. Next thing I had a phone appointment, and then there's a few months of back and forth of the Word document. Hey, what's this about? What's this about? Really did a good job of getting those words and emotions and getting them on paper for me. And then she recommended a publisher, which she did an awesome job with the cover and the hardware of the book, if you will. And, I just, I felt a lot better once I actually, bled these words on the page. And, I feel like I'm a better man for that writing experience,
Well, had you ever written anything before this?
So, it's funny you said that. My publisher, he swears I'm a poet, man, but I have like one poem I wrote when I was like, a kid, and my mom still keeps it in this. It's really cool. But yeah, every now and then I'll throw some stuff like that on paper, and really what it was, man, was every time, I wanted to pick up that bottle and drink, man. And that's a strong urge. If you've ever been alcoholic, I feel your pain, man, or anybody out there struggling. But, instead of that bottle, I picked up a pen or pencil and literally scratched paper, then trying to make all this make sense. And in the end, for a veteran standpoint, man, like we're all just finishing up 2 decades of war, right? So it's very normal people doing very uncommon, extraordinary things, so you're going to have to take that tactical knee at one point, and you feel better once you get these emotions out, these words out.
Yeah. I think that's the one thing that I'm at a disadvantage at. I don't know what it's like to come back home and the sense of identity that you have serving and what you've seen and who you've served with and that family that you have and that kind of disconnection, right? That coming back to, civilian life.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know how you process that. Like, I've had people on the show who, the one gentleman came on, he said that he came back from Afghanistan, and when he got back to the U.S., he still had like like sand on his boots, right? He went to his favorite bar or whatever to meet his friends, and he just came from Afghanistan, so he's flying down the road, and red lights in Afghanistan you don't stop at. He
Right.
just can't. He just
Keep
blow
going.
through
Yep.
those. So when he got back here, he blew through multiple red lights back here in the U.S., and he got pulled over, and the officer that pulled him over had realized what was going
Oh
on,
yeah.
and that he hadn't even like translated back to the U.S. right. And he said, and the officer said, "Are you just getting back?" And he's like, "Yeah, I just got here." He's like, "Remember the stoplights? We stop here, right? Just so you know. So just go ahead, but just slow down and stop at the stoplight." So for him, he didn't even realize what was going on. So that translation from active duty to civilian life. Can you please kind of explain to me kind of what does a soldier do mentally to make that transition? Because I don't understand how this works.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a point, where like your last final out processing appointment from the military, right? Like right before you get your DD 214, all that. I realize it's sort of symbolic. You open that door to leave, right? But there's no door handle on the other side of that. If you ever been to an MPF or something like that, where you out process, you see that. You see like there's usually a door with a handle to get out, but not one to get back in. So they're symbolic there to where like it is an ego death, if you will, or like I had to get over myself, and I had to realize that okay, this machine keeps going, right? This thing's going to keep going forever and ever. And it was great. I love what I did, and I love the people I served with, but life goes on, and it's time to, like I said, my legacy now would be being the best dad I could be, being the best, husband I could be, stuff like that. That to me, that's what's gonna echo in eternity now. But these were chapters in my life, man, where like I've been to some great places, some terrible places, good people, terrible people, but at the end, I wouldn't trade those experiences for anything in the world. And they're right now, those chapters are closed, So how do you begin your next part of your life? You start the next one. You start the next chapter of a new book, whether that's your family, whatever you want your legacy to be. You somewhat, tell your own story at that point. So does that make sense?
Yeah. Anthony, tell me one of your most rewarding experiences that made you just so proud to serve. Can you tell me one of those most?
Yeah.
That one that sticks out for you right in the moment.
Yeah, right in the moment was my very first actual AC-130 gunship shoot, and on the AC-130, the Spectre gunship, our role is to provide close air support for those unconventional forces. So you're talking your SEALs, your Green Berets, Rangers, etc., right? And, we get basically we go to this op, nothing happened, then we get retasked to another after we landed. And, the pilot came back, said, "Hey, there's the Green Beret team, taking fire pin down. Who's with me?" And in our own version, we all said, "Send me." And next thing you know, an hour and a half later, man, I'm on the 40 mil providing close air support for a team that wouldn't have maybe not lived if wouldn't provide that for them. And what it was, I remember flying overhead and I see the two RPG flashes, and these, Taliban members with explosive packs were shooting at the Green Beret team. And I immediately went back, got on the 40 mil, and, we took out all three of the enemy, the enemy killed in action there that day. And essentially you could tell in the intensity in those guys' voice and then how it was in the end, like, we got them out of a bad situation. So I guess the point of pride would be like, I got to do more than an hour and a half flight, and I'd done my whole life for my country. And getting trusted with someone's best friend's life, man, that's an awesome responsibility. So
when you hear those voices that are in distress, and you guys are on your way to fix it and help them, what is going through your body and your mind when you hear somebody who is really in a bad spot?
Yeah, there's a huge, obviously, adrenaline rush is a big part of that, and
Yeah.
you're getting in that mindset where you're getting ready to, and especially on the gun, so you're about to take someone's life, right? But you see the bigger picture is to save your brothers on the ground. You know what I mean? That's what matters, to make sure they get home to their family. And, there's that moment like that I would always take, just like, okay, take a second, see the big picture, what is actually happening here, get my situation awareness up. And then there's something you never get used to, man. And it's that moment where the guy on the ground calls you right overhead, and the enemy hears your prop noises and they just start running, man. And that is a feeling, man. never really put in words. And even in the book, I had a hard time with that. But like that feeling of needing that close air support and that split few seconds, like is a feeling that I chased for the rest of my career. I loved it, And, but yeah, when that's gone, man, that identity, who am I now, when that settles, right? So, but it's a feeling of adrenaline, excitement. I mean, if someone ever tells you they're not afraid going into combat, they're a little bit, they're lying probably. There's always a healthy amount of fear with that. But yeah, just all those things going on within a few seconds. So
When you're in that situation, are you making your own decisions or is somebody telling you what to do?
yeah, so for the close air support side of it, you have a joint terminal air controller, basically a combat controller. It's usually embedded with like a Green Beret team, for example, and they're the ones
Okay.
that call in the air support. So we have a saying that where they on the rounds, right? They call it in, but we on the switches. So there's these. Basically, back then we had 13 crew members on the H model gunship. So every crew member working together, from the aircraft commander back to the aero gunners in the back and the load master, working together in this organized chaos to get rounds out. So the pilot, the aircraft commander, has the ultimate decision, but we talk about it as a crew and everybody's input. And a lot of times there's not enough time for obviously a long conversation. It's within seconds,
No.
But yeah, we get rounds out and make the safest. There's downrange is never ever really a black and white situation, especially in unconventional warfare, right? So you operate in that gray area where there's really just a safe and an unsafe. That's the way I look at it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you go through something like that with that kind of adrenaline and that kind of action, how do you come back to kind of a normal Anthony state from that? How do you, like, I can't imagine it just be like you turn it off like a light switch. Like it's gotta, like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, like I had to at the prolonged exposure, like I get comfortable talking about these things, comfortable being uncomfortable talking about it, and then it gets to a point where like I realize like, okay, I compartmentalize this. This is in my past, like I don't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Like I don't need this level of adrenaline surge, all this stuff. Like, my excitement is with my joy and the calmness of my family, finding exciting moments in the calm,
Yeah.
doing, fishing, basketball, spending time with my daughter, stuff like that. That's what gets my heart and my excitement going nowadays,
Yeah. What do you miss about the family atmosphere of being over there with people and serving with your fellow soldiers? Like what do you miss about that element of serving?
I miss a lot of there's a lot of humor, believe it or not, downrange, and a lot of pranks and stuff like that. But it's all like nothing too bad. It's all the brotherhood and sisterhood, right? All your brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And, there is downtime, downrange, and you really get to know each other's like as a person. I say you get to know their spirit, like how they really are, and it just you miss that camaraderie the most. The people, to me, serving was all about them. Like your brother and sister beside you, and the guys and gals on the ground, right? That's what I fought for. That's what I think we fight for, is each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would be lying if I said I didn't miss that tremendously, especially flying, and just all the humor and the jokes. And then when it's time to work, we work, just that atmosphere.
Did you have kids while you were out serving? Like, were they back home, or what was the timing for that?
Yeah, so I had my daughter at the tail end of my career. I say it was 2016,
Okay.
When she was born. And so I put her through, I think it was like 3 or 4 deployments there at the end. And yeah,
Wow.
that it does weigh on. I mean, I'd see guys come back and it's sort of terrible because their kids wouldn't recognize them, and I was definitely afraid of that, like where my daughter wouldn't recognize me after coming back after, 4 months or so, even just 4 months. But luckily she always recognized me, and always a running hug, is what I call it when I would get back. But yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, I could see how that could weigh on men and women very much so if that happened where they didn't recognize them.
Yeah. Yeah. I had one gentleman say he was on his way to leave for deployment, and his 2-year-old daughter saw him kind of marching in front, and he didn't understand where daddy's going and calling out to him. And he said, like, he's like, I got to hold it together. I got to go. But his daughter's like, where are you going? Like, where's daddy going? And this whole moment was like he just kept replaying in his mind.
Yeah, there's something
It's
with a
tough.
daughter and a dad relationship too. Like, man, that tugs on
Yeah.
your heartstrings, you know.
Yeah.
So
Right. So okay. So when you're serving over there, being away from home is another whole aspect. Missing your relationships, missing your family, your connections with home. What did you do to kind of keep tabs on life back at home and with family? What kind of things, how available was it for you to be in touch with people at back home? I'm always curious from a person who's never done this,
yeah,
what kind of relationships and how that works for you when you're serving.
yeah. So back when Afghanistan was back after back after back, deployments. There was the MWR, and it was basically this place where like you could go and they had Skype set up, and they had show my age over here, but even the calling cards, you know what I mean. So you would wait for someone else to get off the phone, and then get your 30 minutes with your family or whatnot, and then you see technology develop, and then the Skype came and Zoom, all this other stuff, etc. And these different apps, but yeah, I never really had trouble. I mean, especially I would say, on like working with the USOCOM, in that atmosphere, like there was always a ways to reach out to your family. And one deployment, on one of my helicopter deployments, the pilot was given a sat phone, and basically he's like, hey, if you guys ever moments notice have to call your family, here it is, type thing. So yeah,
Nice. Okay. Yeah, because I always kind of wondered, like, because back in the day, the old days, you'd have to wait for mail
yeah,
and blah, 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 and it'd be weeks and weeks and weeks before you hear from anybody. And I'm just like, I don't know how I would do, Anthony, in that situation, being that far away from my family. I don't know how I'd handle that.
yeah. It's hard. That's the hardest moments, like when you hear a kid's voice or see him on the camera, right? And
Right, right.
even my parents, they'd send me care packages, and they just always made me feel good that they never forgot about me. Like just that
Mm.
level of love, for their son still, what, 21 and a half years, they always prayed for me, had my back, and sent me stuff, Had my mom's church even sent me stuff, even tobacco products, believe it or not. So, yeah, yeah. Lot of
Thanks,
gift,
Mom.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, what I love about your book, Anthony, is that it's written not only to tell your story, but to help people as well. Can you kind of tell us we'll talk mission talk here. What is the mission of your book as far as the reader? What are you hoping that a reader's going to get from this and connect with you? Who do you want this to help?
Yeah, I like how you put that. The two missions or two objectives, I guess, of my book would be like, one, to like identify like, hey, it's okay not to be okay. Like you're going to hit that moment when the dust settles and your sense of identity, sense of purpose. It happens to almost every veteran that I've ever, brother and sister I've talked to realize that this thing goes on, you can get help, and life can still be beautiful, man. You can still be relevant and matter, to each other, to your family. The second objective would be like to show the rest of America and Canada and what these countries are, all of our partner nation guys, right? Like this is what goes on when you're sleeping. This is what your troops are doing. While you're sleeping. But yeah, those two main objectives there. So,
Who do you think is your ideal reader for the book?
I would say anybody in a very like not just veterans, but like these very uncommon jobs. Firemen, policemen, anybody that's served. That's doing these very uncommon jobs, right? Like that would be it.
Okay. And then your own personal story. How much of do you tell your own story around addiction and working through that through the book as well? How much of that is in the book?
Yeah, towards the end it's pretty addiction heavy with the alcohol stuff, and
Okay.
yeah, and it talks about recognizing, that's the first thing you do is someone's recognized you have a problem, then you recognize it, right, and then you get help, and just painting that picture that yeah, it's fun, and I know there's this culture with alcohol, especially with aviators, but at the same time, man, there's a limit to everything, and I cross that limit a lot, and I realize that. So
I think the one thing about alcohol, when I talk to people who are struggling and still working through it over the years, is the fact that alcohol is such a social thing,
yeah,
right? Like people are just having a beer and a barbecue. Right?
oh yeah,
It's like it just seems to be everywhere, and it seems to be so easy to be part of your world.
oh yeah,
It's difficult for people who who haven't been on this path to understand what it's like to have to face that, right, in a social setting. So for you, like, how do you deal with that today when it's around you and just part of your neighborhood and your community?
Yeah, so this was pretty recent, but I was at a casino and naturally I go to eat this place and they put us right beside the bar, and then uh, this lady asked, sort of my story. She's like, "Hey, like, is it hard? Was it hard for you to quit? Is it still hard for you?" And I'm like, "Every day's hard, like right now I see,
Mm-hmm.
these tequila shots getting poured over there, and I'd be lying if I was like, man, I don't want that right now. I want that, right? But
Yeah.
I have to basically say, hey, I don't want to throw away all this progress of sobriety and being a better man,
Yeah.
being a better father, husband, just for one shot, which is, I know in
Yeah.
my case, I don't have the personality where I can have one. It's all or nothing type things, so, but I just, turn my back to it as the roughest, most abrupt way I can and just think about how far I've come.
Yeah. What is your story as you look back at writing through the book and everything that you've done to get to this point? How are you hoping this impacts your family, your kids? Like, what is your hope for them as they grow up under the shadow of dad and serving and all of the things you've been through?
Yeah, I would say, to paint a picture for my grandkids one day, like, hey, when they ask what did grandfather do in the war, right? Like, or the wars, as bad as that sounds, the wars, and then this is what he did, it made a difference, made an impact, he decided to live boldly, and to be in the air, man, and the very pointy end of that spear, and to do something that was noble and mattered, and he left every night looking in that man in the mirror and saying, yeah, I gave 120% towards the mission and towards my family every day. That would be the theme, and the theme of perseverance I would want them to get. That an aircraft takes off against the wind, not with it, so just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. I like how I like how you use that. That's good. What about your legacy through the book? What are you hoping this book does for you into the future?
yeah, I hope that it's at least a remembrance, of some point, that, you look at aviation, man, and the way it's going, there is, the actual aviator, right, and 2% of the list of force fly in the Air Force, and like the actual aviator part is really going away if you think about it, with the unmanned stuff and with the AI, all this stuff is developing. But I would want it to be like, man, that was a guy that actually, flew, man. He got to actually aviate, navigate, and communicate with his best friends. And 20 years from now, it probably won't even be a thing, man. It'll be all unmanned and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
So,
I had a gentleman on a while ago. He flew Black Hawk helicopters, and when he came back, he's like, it's got. He said, when you serve, you either come back loving what you did, or you're gonna never do it again. And he's like, I don't want to fly a helicopter. I don't want to do that ever again. And doesn't interest him anymore. For you, is flying still something that's your passion?
oh
Are you
yeah,
still interested in that? Like, do you get a chance to go and do anything like that now?
yeah, 100%. So right now I do so a lot of the flight simulators here on, at the Air Force Base here. Basically, I build these scenarios to where, like, whether it's on the gunships or the MC-130, stuff like that. And
Oh,
then, like, it could be emergency procedures. It could be something as simple as the weather. It could be fail in their communications. It could be threats on the ground, shooting apps, stuff like that. These wartime scenarios, and you take lessons you've learned and you put them in this virtual reality, if you will, flight simulator, and then you see it play out real time. And the best case scenario would happen with, somebody got back from downrange and be like, hey man, like that scenario really helped me. It was a similar decision we had to make, something like that. So yeah, I'm definitely keeps me, I would say, somewhat in the game, but not really flying. you know. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, just if that makes sense. So
How realistic are those scenarios that you're creating for people as somebody who's there and you did it? Does it take you back
oh yeah,
yourself? Like, do you feel like it's like really like accurate?
oh 100%, yeah. Especially
Yeah.
the gunship ones. Like these scenarios play out. And it's virtual reality. You could tell it's still like virtual reality, right? But like it's very clear, man. And millions of dollars have went into these things. They actually
Yeah.
move, and even when the 105 shoots the howitzer, right, the simulator will move just like we would in real life. So yeah, definitely it could take you back, and it is like a movie Inception or something, a dream within a dream, So yeah.
When you see the Hollywood version of what you did and what the people around you did over there, is there anything that's like close to realism, like we would see in a movie or something that you're like, that's kind of close, and this is not even close. That's not even real.
Yes.
Like, do you have any point of reference from that we could probably pick up on and see on a TV or a movie or something?
Yeah. So I'll start off with the most unrealistic. I actually talk about this pretty funny story in the book, but the on Transformers, the Ace Model Spectre gunship. You see this 105 shooting the Decepticons. We even put a Decepticon on the aircraft. Yeah, I got a picture of it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And so this 105 shooting this really high rate of fire, look like borderline like saber rounds, and Tyrese, the combat controller, gets on the horn there. That to me, that was pretty unrealistic, but it's at the end of the day, I realize it's a movie. It's Hollywood. It's Transformers, for crying out loud. But I think it's the Covenant is a somewhat accurate. I think it's Jake Gyllenhaal, and he's pinned down, and there's this dam, and it shows the gunship come in and absolutely just wreak havoc and get those guys out of a bad situation. The end result being what would really it would be like downrange, but even that one still the rate of fire. It's as an aviator, you could sit there, even Top Gun. I'm sure those guys critique that movie all day, right?
Right,
I still realize it's a movie, and it's at least painting a picture of what goes on downrange. Somewhat accurate for the Covenant. So
yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that it's helpful for people who have no point of reference.
Yeah.
Right. We're like, I have no idea. Right.
Yeah.
So like I've had people on that, are they're pilot instructors and stuff, and they talk about what they do, and it's like, I have no idea. Right. So it's interesting when we can put it into context and maybe something we would identify with.
Oh yeah.
Maybe helps us see a little bit more to realize, well, that's Hollywood. That would never happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And a lot of those on the sort of same line of questioning would be like the the Modern Warfare games. All these people ask me if I play or zombie gunships. I'm like, man, I don't really play those games because I did this life for so many years, and then now I'm doing a more realer virtual reality as my job now. So like when I'm done with work, I'm done with it.
You're done with it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't need to play the game. I've been there. I got the shirt. I know this.
100%.
Right. I love it. Okay. As an author now, like you have this to your credit that you have the book out in the world, and that's amazing. Do you think you're going to keep writing as an author? Do you have more stories to tell?
Yeah, definitely. Working on sort of grassroots of it right now, but working on another book. But what I really want to do, man, is I don't know how I'm gonna skin this cat yet, but it's just to create a hub, right? Like a central place where veterans and first responders, whoever, could come and basically get their nonprofit like published and edited for free, their book, if they wanted to get something out there, because like I said, every veteran has a story. I truly believe that, and you feel so much better when you tell the world, man. And sort of I was telling you before, God bless authors, man, and God bless podcasters, because without these things, like these stories die in the desert, right? And I don't want that to happen. I want everybody's story to matter.
So there's people listening to this, Anthony, and maybe they want to help you in this dream. What do you need to make this a reality?
I would say like how to build that website, and then I would need publishers and editors. That'd be the three big things from the get go I would need, and then just traffic, getting people to it, and getting encouraging people to tell their stories.
What kind of authors, like what kind of people are you thinking about to come and write? What kind of do you have any kind of guide as far as who you'd like to work with as a fellow author?
Yeah, I would say definitely any veterans, policemen, firefighters, all these. I don't know how to categorize these jobs, but these very, uncommon jobs,
Yeah. People who run towards problems instead of running away from them.
100%. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Do you think when you think about addiction and everything, do you run from your problems or do you run at them?
Well, I used to run from it and deny it, right, and over and over.
Right.
But now I face it head on every day. Like, that I hold myself accountable, right? That accountability mirror. Like, did you drink today? No, okay. Mm-hmm. You don't want to throw away all this progress, and think about your family, So yeah, now I run towards it and face it that I did have a problem.
Mm,
But now I have a little more arsenal, right? To where like, okay, I got some space between me and my past alcohol abuse,
yeah. That's important to you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Cause I think like, it's a way like if you don't see your progress and I feel better physically, obviously that stuff mentally from not drinking, like, but if you don't see your progress, the fruits, then you're not going to want to do it as much. That's how I am anyway. Very, very transactional with myself at that point.
So, Anthony, talk to the person listening who is struggling, but nobody knows,
Yep.
right? It's a silent thing they're wrestling with, and they haven't got to the point yet where somebody's called them out on it and said, make a change, or, we're going to leave or something, like what happened for you. But they're struggling and nobody knows, but they're listening to this with their headphones on. Nobody knows what they're listening to. So they're not going to get embarrassed. They're not going to get called out in front of people. But they have a chance to hear you talk to them. What would have been helpful for you to hear in a podcast, in a conversation that might have given you a little spark to make that change?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is that realize the first of the realization, like know thyself, right? One of the oldest quotes. Look in that mirror and like ask myself, okay, am I really abusing this drug? Is this recreation or is it alcohol, whatever the case may be, and face it, and then think about it from not just an internal perspective, but basically your family, your friends, everybody that depends on you to be the best person you could be. And in my case, I was on a path to drink myself to death, man. You know what I mean? And basically, you want to be there for them, your kids, your grandkids, your future kids, if that's the case. This or your girlfriend, boyfriend, your friend, whatever the
Yeah.
case may be. It's about them as much as it is you. So, you know, face it, get help. Don't be selfish, and then, own it, man. Own it. Own it every day. So,
Amazing. Amazing. When did the book come out?
April 7th of this year.
Wow. What have you heard back from people so far?
I get a lot of different, especially people I flew with. It's come on commented on like the Amazon links and stuff, and it's made my eyes water a few times, and just the pilots and the air crew I flew with and gunners, and I haven't had really, knock on wood, any bad reviews yet, but it's all positive, and it's the most thing I hear, like the most common theme would be like, it's the only book they've read that'll make you laugh and then cry within the same hour, because it is a short read, to be honest. It's like a 2-hour read, like a Sunday read, but those different emotions all within that short time frame. It's a good Sunday read, I guess, to answer your question, is what I'm trying to say. So
Who in your service, when you look back, had a big impact on you? Someone, maybe a leader, somebody who you reported to, somebody that was over you, that you just looked up to, and there's something special about them. Who was that for you?
yeah, I would say definitely that instructor on my first flight. You're getting the hell beat out of you during these flights, and you're realizing that later, and you're thankful for it. You're like, man, like, because you can't simulate certain things in combat, no matter how much you try, and he made me a better aviator, a better man, by basically, giving me thick skin, and then to know my strengths, but it's more important to know your weaknesses and to keep moving forward. That aspect of it. You're never out of the fight.
What about people who haven't served, who maybe don't give the right respect to people who have served? I kind of hear some of this here and there, and I just want to talk to that person and just kind of reinforce about these brothers and sisters when they come home and what they need when they get home. How can we be more respectful and honor and supportive for those people when they come back to home life?
Yeah, I would say first of all, it has gotten a lot better though. Like since like Vietnam, right? I couldn't imagine what those guys and gals went through when they got back. But I would say to that person, like, first of all, that if they feel that way, like that, that's how they feel. I respect it. We're free countries, but I serve for them to believe that, in the end, and then, but also to be like, if you really care, like, there's a difference between saying, your friends, right, and they go over there and they come back, like, to say, hey, how's it going, man, or like, hey, how you doing, really, man? Like, I know you just dealt with a lot. Like, actually ask that question, But yeah, I guess does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. So when you come back, do you still have connections with people that you served with?
Oh yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah. How meaningful is that for you?
That's everything. It's with the exception of my family, my rock, right? Like, checking on them and them checking on me. To be honest, I should do that more. But it's everything, man. It's like someone still cares, man, and like, we all loved each other at the end of the day. Everybody we served with, and your brothers and sisters, and you'll have those moments in time forever.
So they might see your name on this episode and go, I know this guy.
Possibly, yeah.
Do you got a message for them?
Yeah, for the people I served with, it was a pleasure, it was an honor, it was a blessing to even know you, and at the end of the day, what we did does matter. We all have to believe that, and freedom is it's definitely not free. Not to sound cliche, but it's definitely not. And what each and every one of them did matters, and the highlight of my life was just to simply know them. So,
excellent, Anthony. It's great. Where do we connect with you, Anthony, to find out more about Moonchild, and to connect with you, and maybe there's something else coming down the road from you, some more writings. Where do you want to send the listener to connect with you?
Yeah, I would say there's a Facebook page is just titled Moonchild, and it has me, looking out the window with my MVGs on the gun strip, and that's always a good one. And my Instagram is Marco_Brello21 is my handle there. And then with the exception of that, as far as the book goes, anywhere they sell books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, you can order online. And, I greatly appreciate everyone's support. So, and thank you, Dave, for letting me tell this story.
It's amazing. Thank you for sharing this book with us. Thank you for being open to talk about kind of your struggles and how you're working through this. And I can tell you, your family's proud of you. Not just for your service, which is huge, but for coming home and being that dad that your kids love and your partner loves. You're just a great guy, and I'm sure that this book is a great example to them, that there's a legacy for them to hold on to. But I can tell you, they're probably so proud to see you share your story in this way. So, Anthony, thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me, Dave. It was a pleasure, man. Honestly, thank you.
Excellent. Everyone, all information for Anthony in the show notes as always. When you buy Moonchild, I'm asking you, leave a detailed review. Anthony, I'd love to hear your thoughts about the book, what stood out for you, what part of the story stood out for you. And if you know anyone coming home or has recently come home, maybe they're struggling a little bit, they need some support, grab a copy of the book, give it to them as well, and let them know that this is out there, and Anthony's written a great book that can help many, many people. So if you're struggling right now, there's a lot of great people out there that want to help you. So find your community, find your tribe, and surround yourself with positive people who are going to help you. Anthony, thank you so much for being part of the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Dave. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. Glad to have you here. I just want to let you know that you can always find out what we're doing live in the moment by going to our YouTube channel. Head over to livingthenextchapter.com. There'll be a link right there. Head over to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all the things that all the YouTubers love to say. And in our YouTube channel, a couple things. You're going to get advanced listens. You're going to get the episodes that we're working on in real time. So we record and post daily on our YouTube channel. I'd love for you to give us a follow over there. As well, we're making playlists. We have over 500 episodes. So finding the right episode for you, we're trying to group things into playlists. So if you like children's books, if you like business, you like historical fiction, we're grouping our authors together to make it a little easier for you to find your favorite next author. So head over to livingthenextchapter.com. And again, I'd love to hear from you. Hearing from the listeners of the show is great. And I just want to say thank you for being a part of the podcast family. And I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time and your listen. Take care.